As you can see, I'm not wearing the same clothes that I was last night. Reasoning for that is because, well, I filmed the last one last night. I started to watch this one last night after I finished filming the one for Dirty Blob, but I instead decided to. I ended up watching the episode in 2 parts, so I finished it just a little while ago. So now I'm gonna do the video blog on it. This is episode 4, MeGo the Freakish Robot, and oh my god, this episode, aside from a funny ending, this was the one that had the most, I think, pathetic showing so far of the bunch. So this one involves the Game Shakers are asked to create a new video game by these 2 entrepreneurs who've created this robot, a very smart and intelligent robot, although clearly, even though it's supposed to be a smart robot in the universe, it's a very dumb robot in this universe. Because think of the bots in the bots from the restaurant Bots in Sam and Cat. I mean, like, those robots were complete morons. This robot is not a complete moron, but at the same time, it's clearly not a smart robot. It's as smart as it should be, is how they set it up, pretty much. And what happens is the robot ends up spending a lot of time with Hudson, becomes very friendly with Hudson, and as a result of that, when Hudson leaves for a trip to Las Vegas to an MMA fight with Double G and Trip, the robot gets insanely jealous. The robot, you definitely know, if you forget the title of the episode, and if you forget the robot's name, don't worry, he constantly reminds you what his name is. I am MeGo. Yeah, and it comes to the point where, yeah, you see where this is going. The robot gets violent toward Trip, seeking to destroy Chip in order to have Hudson all to itself, and ends up clearly becoming obsessed with Hudson. Why in the world he become obsessed with Hudson, I have no idea. Unless he was obsessed with wanting to destroy Hudson. Although in this case he's destroying Trip to be with Hudson. I'm trying to figure out what exactly to say about this episode, other than the obvious. Once again, Cal Mitchell, in all the episodes, he stands out because clearly he's the one giving a shit of the cast. And the bodyguards, they didn't bother me so much this time. I guess because, just I'm taking it for what it is now. They're not going away, and they're stupid. But at the same time, the less of them, the better. And you don't see much of them in this episode, so that's a saving grace. Although that's about as nice as in his editorial of top 11 good things about the Star Wars prequels, Doug Walker, he, as nostalgia critic, he said that the number 10 thing was less Jar Jar as the films went on. And he said, yeah, I know this is still talking about something bad in the series, but less of something bad as we went forward. One little error I'm going to point out there with him, Jar Jar did actually appear in the third one, but he has a very bit role, and he does have one line. The only line he has in the entire movie is "Excuse me." Anyways, going off on a tangent. So, there's not a whole lot to say about this episode, except Babe and Kenzie at one point get into an argument as to how to pronounce what the plural for octopus is. Is it octopuses or octopi? And clearly, Kenzie is taking the stance of it's octopi. And what else do we have? We have the video game them playing the video game, and then we get some more dumb lines from Hudson. And we always get dumb lines from Hudson because it's his character. It's his character arc. So, yeah, there's really not a whole lot to say about this episode because it's stupid. And then that's just it. It's stupid. Obviously, it comes down to the point where MeGo trips Trip, tricks Trip to going onto the roof and tries to push him off. Everybody else ends up coming onto the roof, and they convince MeGo, who's threatening them all with a laser, mind you, to let him go, which MeGo does relent because it cares more about Hudson than it does about destroying Trip. And then Dub, or Double G, he pushes MeGo off the roof because he's deathly freaked out by robots. That's his arc in this episode. Yeah, and then the people who own it get back, and they bring the robot. They bring back the pieces of the robot, and we get a good gag that the episode ends with, in which MeGo's head says, "I can tell you what really happened." And Dub's response is to grab the head out of the bin with all the parts that Kenzie was able to retrieve and throw it right across the room. The timing there just works so well in that gag. That got a legitimate laugh out of me. That gag in the episode. The rest of this episode, though, I mean, like, it was kind of just a dead zone. I mean, like, let me just quickly go through with it, try and recall exactly anything there is to talk about. I mean, some kind of argument about batteries at some point, and something about, there was some kind of gag involving batteries. I know that. Let me rewind to that part. Oh yeah, the gag about the grapes, that was dumb. Hey, you're going to hear me say that a lot about this show. You're going to hear me say that was dumb a lot. Now, granted, I mean, I said that was dumb. I'm going to say that was dumb a lot with this show, as opposed to Sam and Cat, in which I pretty much most of the time said, that was insufferable. That was insufferable. That's what I said about Sam and Cat. That's what I constantly said. And she swats the grapes out of her comedy. She swats the grapes out of her hand, comedy, and then she grabs a whole bunch while Kenzie's not looking and sticks them in her mouth. And then, him hitting also another gag in the episode that got a laugh out of me. When he hits the tennis ball across the room and it breaks a window. I thought that was funny because just like it was so random. It just came out of nowhere. Yeah. The sporadic jokes, I think, work best because, like, they sort of have a bit of a physical comedy to them. Like, for example, Kenzie getting an F in the first episode and wallowing around on the floor, so, like, horrified by the idea and depressed by the idea and distraught over the idea. That's not funny. Her throwing herself across the room because she thinks there's an earthquake and, like, knocking a bunch of stuff on my table as a result, that's funny. Because, yeah, seeing somebody, like, emotionally suffering over something, it doesn't make much good comedy. And I feel that's something that's constantly done in Dan Schneider's shows. He gets gags, he makes gags out of situations in which people are upset about things, and it's not funny because like we feel uncomfortable doing it. It's like Legend of Korra, the episode Spirit of Competition, when Bolin starts bawling after he sees like Korra and Mako kiss. It wasn't funny. it was painful to watch, and it made me feel uncomfortable. So many of those gags like that in the show. I mean, like, I get. Doug Walker said many times, comedy is based on suffering. Well, there's a point where, like, it's not funny, it's just mean. Just to see somebody, like, constantly wallowing. And then there's also a gag where MeGo steals Dub's shorts just because Babe asked MeGo to get the nearest shorts, get in the nearest gym shorts, and MeGo's response is to chase after Dub and rip his off. And then he comes back in the room and he's... What's the underwear he's wearing? Again? Oh yeah, he's wearing, oh yeah, he's just wearing gold underwear. And he hits MeGo's butt, too. Like, what is the point of that? There are points where the show kind of gets away with murder. And then there's also a point where he's singing... He says a line from Hot Blooded, which, yeah, we get some weird... Wow, to think. Nickelodeon in the past 5 or so years would avoid direct pop culture references like the plague. If they did something along the same lines, they would change around, like, for example, in Stuck in an RV, when they did the Ghost spoof, they didn't use Unchained Melody, obviously, because they didn't have the rights to Unchained Melody. And they had a song that sounded a bit like Unchained Melody, but wasn't Unchained Melody, play in the background. And, you know, there are strange gags on... It kind of makes me think of, like... Clarissa explains it all at one point in an episode where, like, the mother's high school sweetheart or something is going to be visiting, or her old boyfriend, and there's a point where Clarissa imagines, like, a gag that spoofs the ending of An Officer and a Gentleman. And, yeah, that's clearly something that was meant for the adults. Something that Nickelodeon could get away with back then, mind you. So many things in the 90s shows that Nickelodeon could get away with, they can't get away with now. Yeah, I'm amazed that there's more pop culture references, and those are, like, working their way in nowadays. And then also there was also the gag which they spoofed Forrest Gump. I guess they couldn't get the rights to Forrest Gump, and it's just, it played weird, because, like, why this spoof of Forrest Gump has, like, call them Tom and Mike, because, like, the first names of the actors who played Forrest and Bubba. I admit that little stealth move kind of works. But then, like, he has, like, the gag involves, like, Mike, the Bubba stand-in, is dying and thinks about how I shouldn't have really eaten that shrimp, and then, like, Tom's narration, who's the Forrest stand-in, goes like, there's nothing that, there's nothing I loved more than Mark. Except I did hate shrimp a whole lot more. Something like that. It's weird. Like, this show continuously teeters between weird and stupid. Yes, other Dan Schneider's shows have had strange gags before that don't work. Like, for example, actually have had strange gags that don't work. Strange gags that actually do work, kind of. Like, for example, there was a gag in an iCarly episode, I don't remember which one, but the one where they have the bit where they talk to a giant baby. They do an interview with a giant baby. I could kind of actually take or leave that one, because, like, I personally would not think of something like that, but at the same time, I kind of give him credit for thinking outside the box. I admit the funniest part of that is when Sam asks, "How much do you weigh?" and the baby like starts wailing really loudly, and she goes, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have asked that." Because it just, in the universe that Dan Schneider's created, that joke made sense, I will say. And then the direct channel, that's the name of the channel that they're watching the show on. I'm not entirely sure I get that gag. I don't get the octopus's gag either. I mean, I get that they're making a kind of a point, but still, it's kind of lost on me. So yeah, I pretty much, and MeGo gets Trip to go to the roof by telling him there's $1 million up there. Okay, even in Dan Schneider, even in the Dan Warp world that Game Shakers takes place in, that's not gonna work ever in any show that you could put that gag in. That will not work because, come on, there's gags where it should go without saying that is pretty friggin' stupid. Yeah, like I said, I'm pretty much just gonna keep repeating the words weird and stupid. So I guess we'll just move on to the next episode then. See you guys then.